So what we're going to do is we've got 4 representatives today, 4 panelists from different organizations, and hopefully one other joining us a little bit later. And I will get them all to introduce themselves first, who they are, what their organization or group is all about, what role they play in their organization, where they're based, just a little introduction. And then what I suggest we do is we go into breakout rooms, but in a very safe way, just to say hi to each other, just to get to know each other. And we'll pose a question, we'll put that in the chat box. Nothing difficult, I promise. But yeah, we want you to get to know each other, because I've found that in the sessions, that in the breakout rooms, it's really nice to get to know people a little bit and why they're interested, why they're here today. So if I first go to Claire, please. Claire Holmes, please, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name's Claire Holmes. I work for Holbeck Together. I'm the Operations and Service Officer, which involves outreach as well within my role. So we're a neighbourhood network scheme, and we're one of 36 in the city. We're based in Holbeck. We cover the LS11 ward, which is Holbeck and Beeston. So we primarily used to work with older people over 55, but we've recently changed our constitution so that we now work with all age groups. We just felt that we'd recently moved offices, and we're based more firmly in the centre of the community, and we found that quite a lot of people were coming to us for various things. So we support people with benefits, housing, anything really, social isolation, so it's getting people out to activities, and we have 2 minibuses so we can take people out. Obviously at the moment things have changed dramatically. We've had to adapt services to fit with what's happening. So we're just mainly providing the meal services and outreach service. So we deliver meals to our clients around the community, and we're also providing food parcels for people in the community. And we've just recently been working with families through a Healthy Holidays grant, and that's to provide them with food and activity and various other things throughout the 7 weeks that they've been off school. And we are also running a befriending service, so we call people obviously who can't get out, but those that just don't have contact with many people or family in the area. We've got a bank of volunteers, so most of our activities are run by volunteers. At the moment, it's volunteers who are doing the delivery for us. We work from St Matthew's Community Centre. That's where we're based.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Anne, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, my name's Anne. I work for Your Space, which is a partnership between Touchstone, Holbeck Together and Women's Health Matters. We're a community wellbeing and outreach service based across South and East Leeds, funded by the council. And the premise of our organisation is to reduce risk for people developing mental health, so that prevent and protect side of things, developing mental health issues, we all have mental health, through social activities and training to ideally improve and maintain people's well-being. Yeah, so we try to work with people to do that and empower them in their communities.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anne. Mo, can I ask you to join us, please, and introduce yourself?
Hi, folks. My name is Mussarat Rahman. I'm part of BIASAN. We are actually based in Bradford, but we do have connections in Leeds because we primarily work with refugees and asylum seekers. And obviously, before and during lockdown, we've been just changed our delivery. So we've been offering food parcels. We do English classes online. We've set up WhatsApp group for both the men and the women so we can keep in touch and relay all the information that's needed. We do recycled goods for people who are in need. We put them in touch with different services as well. We do practically everything I can think of literally right now. And also we do creativity packs. We've been accessing the free packs. Anything we can find resources that are free for our community, we will deliver it. I've been trying to, so on the other side of that, we've been trying to keep them occupied by making sure that we put positive messages out as well, and signposting where needed if they can't access certain food parcels, we can offer them from the local centres as well. So we've been trying to do a myriad of things, if I'm honest. But we're interested because it was the first time, you know, it was something, well, it's a bit different, isn't it, the Kindness Festival. So I thought, well, you know what, people are in that zone, they are feeling a bit fed up with lockdown. So it's changed people, I think, and how people are thinking, I suppose, right now. So it was really good for us to be involved, to know what other people are doing. And I'm finding that we're in similar circumstances, quite a lot of organisations and the services that you're offering. So that's why we were drawn to come and be as speakers today.
Wonderful, thank you, Mo. And just so everybody knows, I mean, the idea of this festival was to start it in Leeds because that's where we happen to be, but we want it to go out as far as what, you know, as possible. And, you know, so for us, you know, Yorkshire, you know, and beyond, you know, nationally, internationally, I mean, we've had some contacts from all over the world at the moment saying, oh, we're really interested in what you're doing. So, you know, so Bradford, yeah, absolutely. You know, we want Yorkshire, all of Yorkshire. Ellie, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Ellie Harrison. I'm an independent artist based in Leeds and the artistic director of the Grief series. And what we do is we make arts projects that help people discuss bereavement and loss. And we work with people from like 5 years old right up to 95 years old, making creative projects for unusual spaces. So we made a fun fair about anger called the Unfair, where you could go and do angry karaoke and hit a punch bag, or you could write an abusive letter to your ex and we bottle it up for you so you don't have to. Or sometimes I'm like dressed as Ellie, the elephant in the room. Yeah, I suppose kindness and compassion have been a real core value in my practice as an artist from the start. And when I'm not doing grief series, I'm also a teacher, a lecturer and a mentor to young people and artists all over the country and even in Canada and Mexico. So yeah, I'm based at Clay Centre for Live Art Yorkshire in Leeds, but in reality I'm usually somewhere without walls and without roofs. So,
yeah.
Or out in a community somewhere.
It's wonderful, thank you so much for joining us, Ellie. So if I can ask my host, what I'm going to suggest we do is we go into little breakout rooms, and what we're going to talk about, well, I want you to introduce yourself, so whoever hasn't introduced themselves already, just who you are, you know, why you wanted to join today, and just if you could answer, what displays of kindness have you seen in your community during these last few months? So I think most of us have seen something a bit different, perhaps we hadn't seen before. But we'd just like you to, you know, chat about that for a little. We're only going to take 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll start the asking questions to the panelists. You're all right, Caroline, you're muted.
Yes, I think so. I'll ask Jeremy if I'm not. So I'm going to put doing the math. Okie dokie. Hold on there.
Okay, everybody join. See you soon.
Yeah.
Anna Marie, would you introduce yourself, please? Just who you are, your organization, where you're based, and what you do for the organization, please.
Hi, morning everybody. Sorry I'm a bit late. I'm Anna Marie Gabb. I'm project coordinator for Time to Shine project aimed at older people with learning disabilities, and it's called Be Together. And it's for a project for the whole of Leeds, although I'm based in Holbeck, but I do travel around. And the idea behind the project is to combat loneliness and social isolation for older people with learning disabilities. And how the project started obviously trying to find these people and find out after talking to them what their difficulties were, how they were feeling, what it's like for them being lonely and isolated. And then I've found creative ways of overcoming those barriers and changing things for people. So that's what I've been doing over the last 3 years nearly now.
That's great. Thank you so much, Anna Marie. So I'll just ask the panelists. Some of you have perhaps mentioned a little bit, but what I'd like to know is maybe how the group was created, you know, how your group, your organization was created. What was the need at that time, and maybe how it's changed, and who your community is now. So there are a few questions there, but it's just kind of like, okay, what were the beginnings, you know, and who was it aimed at, and who is it aimed at now, and who is your community? Because we're talking about communities today, and we're all part of different communities, you know, whether it's our local area, whether it's a school, a place of faith, you know, the Kinder Leads team, we're a community. So yes, if I could, I'll start maybe with Ellie first, and then I'll move around.
Yeah, so I guess Grief Series was set up by accident, really. I made a show about my experiences of losing quite a few of my family members when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and it was quite an irreverent show, like quite funny, a bit stand-uppy. And as I was touring it round, people started coming up to me afterwards in the bar and saying, "Oh, that really reminded me of when I lost my partner or my parents," and it kept happening. And eventually it got to the point where the space after the show for people to talk was more interesting than the show itself. So I decided that we needed more spaces, social spaces, for people to talk about loss, with laughter or with floods of tears or with terrible rage. I wanted to create spaces where it was all allowed. So I've been doing that for the last 10 years with various artists, faith leaders, funeral directors, florists, chefs, fairground sign writers, the whole lot. So my community is kind of ever changing, really. Because one day I'll be in Bradford, the next day I'll be in Mexico City. So it's really more about a quality of connection and a slowness, I guess, inviting people to slow down and push back a bit against that hurry sickness that we seem to have societally at the moment, to fit more and more in. Yeah.
Thank you. We need to talk about Mexico, because I've had a connection from Mexico about our festival, believe it or not. So we'll talk about Mexico. Anne, please, will you go?
Lovely. So we're funded by the council, and I think where we've come out from is their sort of overall plan for Leeds to become like a good place to live, and a place where the citizens are all healthy, well, and living fulfilled lives. Our partners obviously have really strong links within the community. Holbeck Together and Women's Health Matters, both based in the south, and Touchstone as well, obviously has a really great legacy in terms of like mental health and inclusivity for people of colour, and sort of wider communities like migrants as well. Yeah, so like we sort of come with the approach that's sort of more co-produced, asset-based development. So we're trying to do with rather than do for, and sort of empower people within the local communities to take stuff that's within their control to help improve their own and other people's well-being. I don't know if people are familiar with the 5 ways to well-being that the New Economics Foundation sort of developed through research, but that's often sort of what our work is based around, about connecting, giving, being present, being active. And I always forget the 5th one. It doesn't matter what order I do it in. Connect, give, be active.
Got one here.
Take notice.
Be active, take notice, keep learning, give.
Keep learning, that's it, lifelong learning as well. So yeah, that sort of informs a lot of what we do. And what we found is we sort of had to go into communities initially to sort of like build relationships and trust, and now sort of into our second year we're starting to do more co-produced things. We're starting to do more asset-based stuff where people are coming to us and saying, there's nothing for me on a Sunday, let's do a Sunday social group on Zoom. So we're doing that and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that in part for us, kindness is about recognizing that doing 2 or doing 4 doesn't always give people what they actually need. So working with is sort of where we're coming from as well.
That's great, and I've heard that a few times this week on different sessions, and it is a real shift, isn't it? And it's a kind of mind shift for everybody to, you know, for those of you working in the sector, but also for everybody else to think about it in that way, rather, you know, as a more empowering thing rather than, oh, I'll do something for you, you know, you need me, you need us, you know. It's a slightly different flavor to it, which I think is so much better. Thank you. Claire,
Yeah.
would you like to?
So like I said before, we're a neighbourhood network scheme, and they've been running for quite some time now. I'm not really sure how it came about with the council, because we get funding from the council as a neighbourhood network scheme. I've only been here 8 years, so I'm not really sure how it was established in the first place, but the aim is obviously to sort of support, well, at the beginning, to support older people without the need of intervention from health professionals and things like that. So it's always around health and well-being, what we can do for that individual to support them, to stop them from getting to a crisis point where they then needed to go into hospital or needed some sort of support from social care. It's about, you know, helping people to keep their independence for as long as possible, and what can we do to support that. And like Anne said, obviously things have evolved since then, and it's very much more about what they want to do for themselves and us supporting them to do that rather than doing it for them. And I think just obviously giving people the opportunities as well, and we're looking more about learning, even regardless of age, and what they could do and what they can learn, you know, new skills to build on, that kind of thing. And we have tried to do a bit of the ABCD as well. It is difficult in the Holbeck area. We are quite a disadvantaged area of Leeds, so we tend to find that whether it be a volunteer or a service user, if it's a volunteer that comes to us who wants to engage, we tend to find that they will then need support from us in a service user capacity as well. So we do our best to obviously just encourage people to do various different things. I'm just reading my notes at the same time because I forget. But we're also funded by the Big Lottery and other various funders, and we have the partnership with Touchstone as well. So that's how we get funding in. Also, just read something else, just see if I've missed anything. So obviously we don't provide personal care, that's not something we do, but we do go into people's homes to assess what their needs are in terms of social isolation and what we can do to support them in various other ways.
Great. Thank you, Claire. Mo?
Hi folks. Well, BIASAN was originally started, it was actually a group of refugees and asylum seekers. I can't remember which group it was. And it's now been running for 22 years, and the group has changed. We've got about 40 volunteers, and we don't have major funding. We have to apply for small pots of funding, and a lot of it is done with volunteers, if I'm honest, the amount of work we do. And a lot of where we've managed to help our communities out is by networking, and we've got a lot of community partnerships. We are part of Arts Together, but we're also part of Bradford Literature Festival, most of the major organisations in Bradford, and we do exchanges. So they give us free tickets or freebies, which will massively help our group. The group has grown since I've been there, because I've been there about 11 years now. It's totally changed. It's grown massively. People are referred to us all the time. So we're literally the first point of call when people end up in Bradford. So we have to take care of all their needs, looking at, well, you know, the state of the housing. So we look at kitting the houses out with crockery, bedding, whatever is needed, children's clothes, toys, the lot. We We have English classes, which at the moment are online, but we have to teach people. Some people come with problems with language skills, so we have to get them back into the English class. So we find them all the free resources as much as possible, which will support our groups. We do look at the mental well-being of our group. So we've literally got a partnership in the Yorkshire Dales with people in the Dales Project who pay for everything. So we could take groups out whilst, obviously not whilst lockdown's on, but we did a lot of residentials and day trips, and it really reduced the anxiety and stress within our communities. So we do that quite regularly. We do actually, because when we've sat down and had conversations with the community, we found out how, when you have a look at the life story, where they came from, and they come from really good jobs, and they've lost all their family, and they've lost all their friends, and lost their income, we've tried to find places where we can partner up people and connections. We were part of the hosting project in the Yorkshire Dales, which we used the Yorkshire Dales in a good way, because Skipton were full of retired old people, so it was fabulous for us. So we managed to partner them up with single people and people with kids. So it was huge for us, because we didn't have enough volunteers in Bradford to do that. So we managed to do that, and they've maintained the connection. And we did that in York as well. So it made that they didn't feel less isolated. So it taught them a little bit about UK life. Somebody taking them under their wing and helping them out was brilliant. And sometimes what they've done is then return that favour and gone to volunteer in the community and help out other people in those circumstances. So when we find opportunities, we take them, is the right word, in a good and positive way. And we've used art as a tool to look at people's stories and put on from their perspective. We've used that as a way to target the media when they put out negative stereotypes, so we try and target the ways to fight back in a good way, to say, actually, no, this information that's coming out is false and it's not true. So that's the majority of what we're doing. And we've got so many people, is the right word. We do work with a lot of Middle Eastern communities, African communities. We've got a lot of people from the EU. We've found the rise of people from the Indian community and Pakistani community. We don't close our doors, if I'm honest, but we will signpost them where we can if we can't help them out as much as we can.
Thank you, Mo. That sounds great, that you're kind of being creative and using opportunities where they are. And I love that idea of partnering with older people in Skipton. It's back to, there are other people. It's like dating, isn't it? It's trying to find matches of people who need something and other people who need something, and bringing them together. That's amazing. Thank you. Anna Marie, would you like to just tell us a little bit of, again, about the background and then the community you're working with a bit more?
Certainly. Be Together was set up 3 years ago, and as I say, it was part of the Time to Shine to combat loneliness and social isolation, and it was a partnership between Health for All, Aspire, CVS, who provide the majority of care for people with learning disabilities in Leeds, and Purple Patch Arts. And it was, first of all, I had to find the community. I had to find the people that were lonely and isolated. Obviously, with the connections between Purple Patch run weekly workshops, for arts-based workshops for people with learning disabilities across Yorkshire. So they were able to refer people to me. But from previous work, because I've worked within learning disabilities for probably about 18 years now, I realised that there were people that were falling through the gaps, that didn't really fit into normal learning disabled services. So I wanted to find them as well. So I made my community by going out and making connections with different groups, and because I wanted to find these people that weren't part of the learning disabled community, I started going out to groups that weren't for people with learning disabilities and connecting with them. And my idea has been to bring people together, to show them that everybody needs to be together, rather than, I don't like the way that people with learning disabilities have been in the past segregated, and I've been trying to break down those barriers by going along to different groups, a lot of the neighbourhood networks, but I've also looked at other things as well, so partnerships with solicitors. It sounds strange, I know, but I did have somebody wanted to write their own will, and there was nothing out there that was accessible for him. So I've been partnering with solicitors. We've made an easy read version of how to write your own will, and I've also sent information out to the neighbourhood networks about how to make things more inclusive for people with learning disabilities, about how they communicate, giving information about the services they offer and all that type of thing. So it's building the connections, but not with who you would normally associate learning disabilities, really. As I was talking to all the people who were lonely, the main thing that came through is that people wanted to find a friend. Because they are segregated within society, a lot of the people that have milder learning disabilities know that they don't fit, but they just want a friend, somebody to have a chat to, go and do things with. And there wasn't anything out there that sort of wasn't a structured group, so I set up social groups. One of them was in the Bridge Cafe, which is run by Health for All, and that was called Be Friends. And eventually, before lockdown, there were 4 different cafes around Leeds where I was encouraging people from that community, as well as who weren't learning disabled, and the learning disabled community, to come together to have an informal way of finding out about each other, learning about each other, and creating connections and friendships. Unfortunately, because of lockdown, that's all stopped. I have had some Zoom sessions, and we've been doing those, which have been really good, but they've only been accessible to people who can get online, and obviously with a learning disability, it does make it a lot harder. So I have been trying to maintain things. Unfortunately, the project's coming to an end next week or the week after, so I'm trying to pass on the ideas of working and to try and keep the momentum going, so fingers crossed that will work.
Is that because of lack of funding, Anna-Marie?
Yeah. The project was for 2 years initially, and then it got extended for a year because they realised that the work I was doing was good, and they wanted to support me, which was fantastic. But no, I've not been able to get any more funding.
I'm really sorry to hear that. This is where it's, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do, well, what I've learned about during this whole project is all these wonderful smaller groups and organizations doing amazing work across Leeds, and I know that that's, that happens across the country and everything. Is getting others to know about them, because we don't know, and I feel like I'm a reasonably clued up person, and I didn't know the half of it, and I'm still learning and about different groups. So I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you will find some funding somewhere, that something comes, or that you find a creative solution for that. But thank you for being here and telling us about your work. One of the things I'd like to know, I guess from the different organizations is, or groups that, are there pros or advantages to being small? I'm sure there are disadvantages, but what are the advantages? There may be some. So I don't know who would like to start, but any of you maybe want to offer up, or do you want me to call on you? Ellie, thank you.
Well, I think one of the advantages of being smaller is I live with a chronic illness, and actually being smaller means that we can work around it loads more easily. And actually, a lot of the work that we do is really bespoke. So if a group has a particular need, we can tailor it to that, and it's never we're not big enough for everything to be like a one-size-fits-all process. So we have audiences that stumbled across us like 10 years ago, and it's really personal connection that we have, and they come back to every event. So yeah, it's that sort of made to measure personal touch that I think is a real benefit of being smaller for me.
Anybody else like to contribute?
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, Claire, do you want to go?
No, go on.
Just sort of really to echo what Ellie was saying, I think that you're able to build more personal relationships, and I think also because of that, people are able to feed back, feed in, work with us in a better way, because like Ellie's saying, you're not big enough that it has to be a one-size-fits-all approach. You're able to spend a bit more time to get to know organisations, to work out what their training needs are, for example, or to work with the community to go, okay, this is what you want to do, how do you want to do it? And that's a real advantage that I just think, unfortunately, bigger organisations have sort of boxed themselves in too much to be able to do.
Yeah, and I was just going to say I agree with what Ellie said as well, but there's just a trust element there with the people that you work with, because they just got, they've got that close relationship with you, so you tend to build on that, and you get to know the insides and outs of everything. They come to you with various things. It's just get slightly I wouldn't say friendship, because obviously there's still that professional element to it, but just there's a bit of a bond there, and they feel they can trust you and be able to tell you things. And I think that works better in a smaller organisation rather than a large one. You don't get as much time. I know when we speak to people from Adults and Health, they have a caseload and they only get a certain amount of time to spend with somebody, and we don't have that. It's as much time as they need and for however long they need it for. And there's other various organisations that say they can only work with people for up to 6 weeks, and obviously we don't do that. You don't come to the end of a point and then say, well, we have to move you on now, and they can stay for as long as they need to, for as long as they need support from us.
That's great.
That's it. Yeah, the flexibility of being small is the thing. Like everybody's saying, you can adjust to suit the needs of the people that you're trying to help. And as the last lady was saying, mine has been ongoing support. I've found with the people I've tried to connect with, they've got the milder learning disabilities that don't get the learning disabled support because they're not, their abilities are too great in order to fit their criteria, as it were. They do still need that support, and they've been going around all the different agencies. Like, they'll go to housing support, but they won't want support with the housing. They'll want just that emotional support of everyday life that they can't find. So they are tending to go or having to go to different places over and over again, and it's taking that time to build up the trust, and then by the time they've done that, you've got to go. So being smaller means that you can adjust and keep supporting people.
Mo, did you want to add anything about that point?
Yeah, well, for us, because there's about 40 odd volunteers, we've all put our skills where we think we're suited best, and that works for us because we've got so many people coming through the doors. We've all just found a little bit of ways to work with our own skills, which is pretty good, pretty better, pretty useful actually. So that's all I wanted to add, really, because our group is quite big, so we've had to do that.
We've got a question in the chat box from Angela. Just so you guys know, Angela is one of the co-founders of this festival, of this whole movement. And it's, I'll just put it out to anybody who wants to answer it, is how do communities, third sector, voluntary organizations in Leeds connect, learn, or share with other communities? I mean, you've already said quite a few of you kind of have cross relationships with different groups, but if anybody would like to take that question, please.
For a neighbourhood network scheme, they have a neighbourhood network forum that meets. I think it's every couple of months. Obviously those have gone on hold at the moment, but we usually get invited to one of those, and it's a chance for everybody to say what's going on in their neighbourhood networks and in the community that they're based, so we find out what's happening across the city.
Great. Anybody else have those kinds of networks or anything? Anne?
Sorry, Gloria, I think Shade had a question. He had his hand.
Sorry, Shade. Welcome.
Hi, sorry, I snuck in just a little bit later, so apologies for that. I did join the small group though. So just two things really. One, just going back to the question about what the strengths of smaller organisations are. I really value those smaller organisations. If I'm honest, perhaps more so than my colleagues in the council. Their processes tend to lend themselves better to working with larger and kind of medium-sized organisations. But in the work that I do, and so apologies colleagues if I've not introduced myself, I'm Shahid Mahmood, I'm Chief Officer Communities at Leeds City Council. I've found the impact of smaller groups much more helpful. We actually do every year a small groups and charities event where we take the opportunity to get 200 people from different organisations across the city together with the Lord Mayor just to say thank you and receive certificates. And they're like 2 or 3 people type operations because we genuinely do recognise the impact that they have. The word I tend to use for those organisations is agile. I think their agility, and I think it builds on things like flexibility and the other adjectives that have been used, but agility is so important in a city the size and the complexity of Leeds. 1/3 of this city, we used to divide the city into 3 portions. 1/3 of this city is the size of Calderdale. So it's a huge concern geographically. And to have small organisations, of which there is a plethora in the city, who are able to shapeshift very quickly within the demographic that they're serving, has really proven its worth under COVID in a way that none of us in the council anticipated. And that agility has meant that they've been just so much more responsive. And the neighbourhood networks is a fantastic example of where that's happened really well. And there's some great stories that Ali and others will be aware of that have been shared around the work that the neighbourhood networks have been doing on this agenda. It's just brilliant. So I just wanted to share that really.
Oh, thank you for that. And you're seeing it from the kind of helicopter view, which is really helpful. So thank you. Sorry, I think Anne was going to say something about how she connects with other colleagues. Is that right, Anne?
Yeah. So two places that are really helpful for us have been Forum Central, which is like the collective voice for third sector health and care in Leeds, and also Leeds Arts and I've forgotten it. Arts and Wellbeing, Leeds Arts and Wellbeing Network. Yeah, are fantastic as well. Yeah.
And are those useful for people who perhaps aren't in the sector but are interested in what's going on in the sector, or is it mainly, because I know I get the newsletter from Forum Central and I find it interesting, but obviously I'm interested in what's going on in Leeds. I just wondered, do you know if a lot of people from outside the sector, get those newsletters and find them useful?
Yeah. I'm not sure, but like certainly for myself, connecting to those and other organisations via Twitter, for example, is a great way for me to start mapping in my mind where our groups are, what they're doing, how they're responding, particularly obviously in the pandemic, and that's been really great, just even in that sort of public forum, to get an idea and to network and build relationships. Obviously, I think we're all sort of finding the online thing is a newer way to do that. But yeah.
Did anybody else want to comment?
Gloria,
Yes,
we have a question.
Okay.
Which from Hazel, if Hazel would like to ask it, or shall I just ask it for you? Would you like to? Yeah, Hazel, you ask it.
That's all right. That's fine. I'll ask.
All right.
That's not a problem.
You can.
Yeah. What I was thinking was, to any of the organisations, if you could have one change, sort of magic wand, what would you like that to be? I mean, I guess in one sense, an obvious answer is money and funding, but I was thinking more abstract than that.
Thanks, Hazel. Anybody would like to take that magic wand time? Anna Marie?
I would definitely like to see the learning disabled community doing more collaborative work with other agencies rather than, because I feel that as a collective we are quite insular for lots of different reasons, historical reasons, the way people with learning disabilities have been treated before, previously, and the stigma that's attached to learning disabilities still. I know it's changed a lot recently, but there's still a long way to go. So I think there needs to be, if we're wanting people with learning disabilities to be included in society, we've got to do it both ways. So I think there needs to be more collaboration between different organisations, just to see, to make people aware of what's going on and how people live and work, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Anyone else want to take that one? Ellie?
I think for me it would be when I'm working, because I work with small organisations and then I work with like much bigger organisations, and when I'm working with city councils or bigger organisations, their approach to freelancers' time is really challenging. So they expect us to turn things round in a day, and it's like, well, actually I'm the person running the workshop, but I'm also the person cleaning the toilets, and I'm also the person doing the insurance. So a bit more of an acknowledgement that we're doing 10 people's jobs would be the biggest like weight off my mind. And it would definitely have a really positive impact, because then I could spend more time on the ground working with communities and less time replying to big organisations' emails, because I've had to drop everything. So that's my rant.
Well, you've got Shahid Mahmood in the room, so that's always helpful.
Shot myself in the foot there.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, could I, Gloria, are you okay if I just touch on 2 or 3 things, if that's all right? I won't take up too much time, but just in relation to that last one, I'm not a time-served council officer, so I just want to put my credentials out there. I actually came from business originally, so and kind of found myself into a local authority environment. And when I arrived, my mates were saying to me, "What the hell are you doing joining a council? You're going to get so frustrated with the bureaucracy. You've got to sit in interminable meetings and all of that kind of stuff." And actually, I think the reason why I feel I've made an impact in the city is primarily because if I can't find a way through something, I tend to find a way around it. I would be more than happy, and I do this regularly, to advocate for people like yourself, genuinely, Ellie, who can, and just be honest with officers of the council and say, look, I am cleaning the toilets today because I can't do this, and I won't be able to turn that around in that time. And if you're not getting a more compassionate and flexible response back, then talk to me about it, or talk to one of my officers, and we will find a way of mediating that. The reality is, as officers, we get our buttons pressed by councillors, and we have certain deadlines to meet and make, and sometimes without wanting to. And I worked with, genuinely, some absolutely brilliant colleagues, well, a lot of really, really good colleagues who genuinely just want to get it done and get it right. And sometimes the reminder on their email says, contact Ellie for this form by the end of the day. And they just go into, I've got 20 things to do, what's my pilot mode? And they go into pilot mode. Push back and explain why. And if you're not getting a compassionate response, we're not being a compassionate council. And one of my officers or I will say, well, hang on a minute, let's just be sensible about this. And we'll do that for you. Just push back, honestly, just push back. Certainly in terms of the council. I can't say for other funders, but I'd say for the council. And just 2 other very quick things. One in terms of where you've got particular specialist activities like the learning disabled disability group that we were talking about earlier on, and other contributions, then we have a series of equality hubs in the city which my team run, and the guy to contact is Jeff Turnbull at leeds.gov.uk, and those equality hubs focus on protected characteristics essentially, but there's a real opportunity to connect the work of small organisations and have a voice within the council, because it's the council's way of engaging around those protected characteristics. So I'd love the colleague who was talking about the learning disabled group to be connected to that particular to an appropriate protected characteristic, or an equality hub as we call them, and to be able to inform and influence and really change the way that the council works around those particular aspects of work. So real opportunity to connect into that. And the other thing I'd throw in is social media. Please connect with me. I'm on social media at _Shahid Mahmood, and I will, if you tag me into things, I will send them to my networks, and I'm getting followed by quite a number of people, and so I'm happy to promote and advertise and link you up with people in that way if you tag me in. And the other two handles that I'd look to do is at Inclusive Leads, and that's our a way of bringing in the different aspects of inclusion work and equality work in the city into one social media platform. And the other one is at Cohesion Leads, which I've put on the message board. And again, tag me in, tag at Cohesion Leads in, and as that followership starts to increase, you will find that your stuff's getting out to more and more people. So I'm really we've tested it for a year and it's really got a nice footprint and it's working well. So I'd love to increase the uptake of that and use that as a means to connect small groups, charities, voluntary effort, etc., right across the city to each other. And at Cohesion Leads is a great platform because it's an all-encompassing thing really about bringing the city together in lots of different ways. And this absolutely sits within that, I would have thought. So I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Shahid. Right.
That's great. Sorry, could I ask, Shahid, could you write your contact details in the chat box, please? I've had a request for that. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have to say that we didn't plan, I didn't know Shahid was showing up today. So this has been it's been a real bonus actually, because he knows his stuff.
I feel so wanted, Gloria. Thanks for that.
No, I'm really glad you're here. It's like, you know, he's connected. He's the man. So and he is very good on social media. He follows us and he's been promoting us quite a bit. So it's wonderful to have you here.
Sorry, Gloria. Angela has a question, a couple of questions actually. I know she has to leave soon, so okay. It'd be great for her to ask them directly actually, sure, before she has to go off to the next session.
Okay, Angela. You're muted. By the way, Angela's running some kind listening circles today, so that's why she's got to run off.
Yeah, okay, I'm just looking back at what I asked now. The conversation's so engaging. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, okay, what was I talking about? Right, safe spaces. Yeah, when we talked about people with learning difficulties, what come up for me, you know, people working across boundaries, bringing people together into safe spaces, and you know, the concept and structure of kind listening circles offer an opportunity and a structure to do that. And I'm connected with voluntary action leads and hoping, you know, to work a little bit more closely with the neighbourhood network in offering them the concept of kind listening spaces, which are spaces where people can just come along and share and talk about and address questions that matter to them, which can be, you know, structured and to suit the audience and the purpose of that kind listening space. But yeah, and questions around, you know, self-care particularly, and kindness and listening to each other, their practice spaces. So, you know, spaces where we can really, how can we really listen to each other, you know, as equals in an equal space. So yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna, you know, you'll hear more about that project. And but we have got some, yeah, as Gloria's mentioned, some kind listening spaces today, and we're planning on doing a weekly one as part of the ongoing follow-up work from this too. So that was just an offer really. Yeah, I think mostly that's all I need to say really. But my big question is to the organisations that are here today is, how can Kind of Leads help you basically? Thank you.
Anybody like to take that one up? Okay, not to worry. Think about it, because now we're here. Oh, Anna Marie, yeah.
Yeah, I've produced some booklets to see about how to use easy read information, and how to include people with learning disabilities. It's really basic sort of information in an easy read format. I produced these with Time to Shine. There are only a few of them. They have been or are being sent out to the neighbourhood networks, but you can find them on the Time to Shine website. So if you could promote those, so that people, it's just to raise awareness of differing needs in communication and to try and get people more in tune with people with learning disabilities. There was I've been talking to the Chatty Cafe scheme, and they've been promoting these things for me on their website as well. So anything along those lines where it's just getting people to think about people with other or differing abilities and how to include them and to be kinder and more welcoming. That'd be great.
Thank you, Anna Marie. Maybe you could just take a photo of that we might be able to again use in social media. You know, we've got a brilliant person, you know, just again to get people thinking about things. You know, I've found that people genuinely, you know, are kind, but they don't know. It's not that they don't want to, it's they literally don't think about it because it's not in their space, on their radar, or whatever. So when you start alerting them, they're like, oh, okay. So yeah, I think that would be great if you could do that. Okay, I'm going to throw another question out, I think, on the panel, please. All of you are involved with promoting well-being in some way or another. This is a bit more personal, actually. So how conscious are you of practicing kindness and compassion alongside that? You know, what does that mean to you personally? So who would like to go first? Anne, please, will you?
Okay, I'll go first. I think for me, certainly over the past few years, learning more around self-compassion has been sort of where I've been focusing. I think that a lot of people who are drawn into doing work around well-being have their own personal experiences of not being very well. And for a lot of us, whether that is a long-term health condition, a disability, or just, I don't know, maybe like a trauma that you sort of carry with you, like, unfortunately, we sometimes end up in positions where we're sort of, I guess we're sort of being drawn into that space where we're very conscious of those things. And I think that unfortunately means that coming from a space of kindness can mean that we give too much. And I've definitely seen amongst friends and colleagues plenty of instances of burnout and things. And I always say I'm the biggest hypocrite. Like, I can give advice, but taking my own advice does take a lot. And really, I'd certainly personally like to move to a position wherein I'm being a positive role model and I'm really living what it is that I'm telling other people they should do for themselves. And I think that's something that touches a lot of people as well, even outside of the sector. For Mental Health Awareness Week this year, the theme was kindness. We did a series of videos, and the one that far and away got the most views was around self-compassion and being kind to yourself. So yeah, I think that's quite a pertinent one for people at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you. Would anybody else like to go? Claire, I think you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, we've just recently rewritten our mission statement and our vision and what you know, what we want to be as an organisation. And then we've written in our personality that we are to be compassionate. So I'll just read you the statement that we've put. It says, understanding people as unique individuals and listening to their circumstances with kindness, sympathy and generosity, working towards an understanding of the depth of a person's situation. And obviously that's the centre of what we do. We need to be there to support people work through their issues and needs. So I think obviously it's embedded in our work, what we do, you know, it's part of who we are and what we would expect to do to give for people. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anna Marie?
I think one of the things that I have struggled with during the project, because it's just been me working out, I've been working in partnership, is when I've found people that for various reasons I cannot help. And that's been really difficult to deal with, and to I suppose to have to obviously I've tried to put them in contact with different organisations, but I know that there are things that aren't in place for them that they need there because of the austerity measures. There's not the funding to provide things, and dealing with that has been quite tricky. So it's the self-compassion, thinking about I can only do so much, and then I have to leave it to someone else. But that is tricky.
Thank you for sharing that. I think just a quick before I let Mo comment. The self-kindness and self-compassion. I mean, we started the week with that theme. And that was very deliberate, because for me, that's the foundation of everything. So I'm a wellness coach. I support other people. And I know if I'm not well, I can't do my job well. You know, I could take, you know, every phone call or every message or whatever, but I can't. It's not good for me, and I need to be well. So I think the fact that that message is getting out there so much more now is vital to everything, because we will all be more kind. If we're kind to ourselves, we'll all be more kind to the world. So thank you for sharing that. Mo, would you like to comment, please?
I think that as people who are in the community and the work that we do, and as we're frontline workers, I think our need to do something and because we see what's happening in the community and the world, and I feel as though it really makes people want to do stuff. And I feel like when I look at the volunteers that we've got, they overdo. Not because they don't need to look after themselves, they do, but I think it's they overcompensate because they feel like if they don't do it, the people are going to struggle. So I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a step back and looking after yourself. You have to, because I'm seeing people do overkill, and it's not good, because then they get aggressive, and then you're thinking, okay then, and you can't find a resolution. So I think it needs hammering into people's heads in a good way, not in a negative way. I'm saying it in a positive way, because I've seen it where people have literally worked themselves to the bone and then collapsed because they're just not taking that time out to give themselves that space, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter that and if you do take that step back, there's always somebody else who will step up and say, right, I can do. And sometimes we forget that as well.
Thank you for that, because I think that's an important point. You know, is like, you know, if you're working in a good team, which I've been working with an extraordinary team to create this festival, you know, sometimes we have to say, look, I can't do this. You know, can somebody else take it? And we've been throwing the ball at, you know, I see it as like a rugby league game, and I really like rugby league because it's very fast and the ball goes, you know, and it gets passed and passed and passed, and then a try happens. I mean, I don't watch rugby league all the time, but I have done. And that's how I feel it is. And in a good team, that's what happens. It's like, you know what, you need a break, that's fine. I'll take it and I'll run with this bit. So that's a great point, Mo. Thank you. Ellie, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I suppose just to echo what everybody else is saying, and I suppose something that I've been thinking about is when do we ask for help as a sign of strength as well? Because for some reason, like, I can be really tired, but if someone asks me for help, I have a little pocket of energy that opens up to help them. And then equally, that other people will suddenly like find these pockets of energy to help me, and sometimes it's much easier to deal with somebody else's life laundry than it is to deal with your own. So I think, yeah, learning to ask for help is a real life skill that I'm trying to work on in myself.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry, I got distracted from the chat. One of the questions I have is, yes, maybe if you could say something about the sort of the value and importance of arts, because I know quite a few of you work with art in your work and in your communities. Perhaps you could comment about that. Anybody want to take that one?
Yes, I'll take that one. Well, we use art. We've used art a lot. We started off because we had so many different communities. We looked at working with crafts at first, actually, and it went down really well. So we looked at taking different types of crafts: sewing, knitting, crochet, embroidery. We used that as a starter, and then we did painting. And we did it as a therapy, actually, because we needed to engage the community. We could tell there was something not right, and we thought, right, we need to find something for people to do. And you could see where people were working when we were doing mandalas and doing like patterning, little bits of conditions that were coming out, which was really good, because that put them in a place where we could engage with the community, and then they got to know us. And then slowly, after working with us for a little while, they began to trust us. So then we could have conversations about what they wanted, what their needs were, and how we could, what services then we could provide. And it evolved from there. It evolved into stories, we did a project about, we were targeting the social media because it's the negative energy that was coming out from the media about refugees and asylum seekers. So we put it to the group, would you like to do something to combat this? So they did they wrote a story, and they did images and artwork saying, this is how I feel. And my view when I was in my own country was that I saw green grass and countries and sheep and cows. When I'm in the UK, I open a window and I am looking at somebody else's back of their house, listening to the dog barking all night, So it was really interesting saying, so that was one way we managed to do one story. And then we did another one where people says, we're sick and tired of being called asylum seekers and refugees. We don't want to be labelled as asylum seekers and refugees because we're sick of it. So we did something called humanising. And we focused on images, artwork, and photography and stories, so people could talk about themselves, like, my name is so-and-so and I'm from Iraq, but I like pizza and I like going to the cinema, and I like going out and doing these things, and I like a bit of a drink, and I thought, okay, so we humanise them, because they just said we don't want labels, we don't want attachments, we just want to be seen as a human. So we've done loads of different types of ways to work with artwork. We try to be as creative as possible. We've used it with poetry. We found out the amount of people in the community that are hidden poets was amazing, and singers. So I thought, oh my God. So we managed to find, and this was with through Opera North, we managed to find a couple of people a platform to sing for Opera North. We had them coming in delivering workshops, and we put them, as many of the workshops Opera North offered us, we brought it all to the group and says, look, have a try with this, and the musical instruments and all sorts of stuff. So it led us into a massively complete different journey. And so we're trying to work on that right now, and what we can offer, ways to engage them, but also for them to share their skills and find a platform for them as well.
Thank you, Mo. That's amazing. So anybody who wants to sing, we've got a Sing for Sane session at 4 o'clock with singer-songwriter Melissa James, and she's brilliant. But I'll plug other things later. Claire, I'm aware Claire has to leave shortly, so I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add, Claire, before you go.
No, not really. I've put it in the chat. I know the end bit was more about what the pandemic and how it's impacted our work, but the newsletter that we've just recently created will give you an overview of all of that, so you can access that. I'm just going to do the Twitter link so that you can get onto that, and on the website it's on there as well, and that'll explain a bit more about what we've been doing.
Wonderful, thank you. And I guess as a small organization, it just shows you have to get in there and do whatever's needed when you're short of people. So thank you. I appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you. Thanks.
Did anyone else, Ellie, you want to comment about? I mean, your stuff is mainly around art, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a while ago I worked with this mountaineer. He participated in one of the projects, and he said the art of adventure is traveling safely in dangerous places. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And I think art is an amazing way of helping people travel safely in dangerous places. Like, there's something beautiful about creating an environment that is unexpected or surprising or beautiful. That is a really nice ramp into talking about things that can be quite difficult or quite profound. When we did our project, The Unfair, you know, it was bright and colourful and it looked like a fun fair. And this big group of lads came in and they were like really enjoying it, really hitting the punch bag as hard as they possibly could. And then he came to me and said, "Oh, Ellie, I know I've used up all my tokens, but I've been having a think about it and I think I'm quite angry and I think I'm taking it out on my mum. Is it okay if I just go into that quiet corner and just give her a ring and say sorry?" And I was like, yeah, here's a cup of tea, take as long as you like. So sometimes things that we have a tendency to think that the arts are like silly or fluffy or extra, but actually they're the ramp into some of those really important conversations that just need a space to happen.
Yes, I agree. Could I just say something here? Because having Ellie came to do a project at the Bridge, didn't you, Ellie? Which is the Learning Disability Day service that I manage, and we did you did a beautiful workshop about the Day of the Dead, and we met beforehand, didn't we? And I didn't quite know how that would go, although I pride ourselves on being an adventurous organisation, so we sort of dive in, and we use, you know, arts a lot. We've done lots of different art activities and worked with proper artists. We like working with artists, you know, not that the notion that people with learning disabilities just want to do a bit of basket weaving, or, you know, not be pushed or challenged, or engage with people of quality. And I know Anna Marie agrees with that. But that workshop was absolutely beautiful, and they all engaged with it so wonderfully, didn't they? It was just fantastic.
Yeah. And actually they came back, and we had artists visiting from Mexico doing paper sculpture in the Marion, and they couldn't speak English, and my Spanish is very ropey, and the day that Bridge came to join the Mexican artists was their favourite day. When we did an evaluation, they said, why couldn't we have worked with Bridge all week?
Bring them back.
Yeah, so they ask after like the Bridge every time we Skype, which is normally at some ridiculously antisocial hour.
Wow,
because they're 8 hours ahead.
That's fantastic that they made such an impression. I'm so pleased. I will have to tell them that. But no, thank you.
And I speak Spanish, by the way, so I can help in that, Ellie.
Oh, you've just opened the door to a world of things.
Right, guys. I'm just aware of time, and I know everybody's given a lot of their time, but I would like to finish, and I'm going to open this up actually to the whole group, because I think we've had a really lovely group here. So we've asked everyone really participating in our festival, you know, what would a kinder Leeds look like to you? But I know some of you aren't in Leeds, so we've got Bradford and we've got Sittingbourne and Kent represented, and possibly other places that I don't know yet. So really, what would a kinder city or town, your town, fill in the blank, what would that look like to you? And, you know, and it can be a one-line answer, you know, it doesn't have to be long, but just have a little think about it. And then whoever wants to open up, if you open up the if you unmute everybody, Carol Ann, and then just raise your hand, and just I'll choose whoever raises their hand.
Yeah, are you unmuted? Unmute all. Whoops. Sorry. How do I do that?
Well,
can't you unmute? Can you unmute yourselves?
Do it one by one. It's fine.
Carol, you can't unmute people now.
I can't. You have to unmute
yourself.
Can you unmute yourself? I can't unmute everybody.
Sorry. Okay.
You're better off doing it yourself.
Anyway, who would like to go first? Any takers?
Okay.
Anna Marie, you go, and then Hazel, please.
I think it's about just taking time, as somebody earlier said, I think it was Ellie saying that we're always pressurized into doing something else, doing more, but just taking the time to see the people around you and to talk to people and just to get to know, make those connections, I think would help people get to know each other and to be kinder to each other. So just taking that time, not rushing through life.
Thank you. Hazel?
Yeah, I would go for lots of people doing lots of small things rather than necessarily, you know, something massive that's going to in itself change the world, but just the cumulative effect of lots of different small acts of, you know, please, thank you, good morning, hold the door open. And the thing that always comes to mind is what my gran used to say of kindness costs nothing. So I think something like that is very accessible to absolutely every person to contribute.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else want to pitch in?
I think it is taking time to just be, to notice, like somebody else said about noticing your surroundings. And because I think we're just so busy and we're always doing that we forget to stop and slow down and just appreciate things, because I feel as though we're always having to do what we've always in this need to do. And truthfully, really, the need is that we need to take a step back and look at yourself, that you need to put yourself in a place where you can just come out of that busy. You don't have to be busy all the time. You can just be in a place of silence and just looking around you and thinking, actually, I'm going to go have a conversation with that person today, because you don't know, you having that conversation might spark something off in them as well. You know, these little things matter. It's not always about being super busy and, you know, saying, oh yeah, I'm doing, you know, because you just make yourself feel at the end of the day as well.
Thank you, Mo. Emily.
For me, safe conversation spaces are more opportunities for them, for people geographically, because sometimes people like to group geographically, but also through theme as well. And just kind of noting like what's the word? So understanding being able to take a compliment. So if someone says something nice to you, like people practicing taking it and holding it and not denying it or laughing it off or brushing it off, and at the same time paying them at every opportunity. So like people deciding what strengths they like in people and then practicing telling people that they see those strengths in them. Sorry, it took me a bit of a garbled blur to get that out, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful one. Taking a compliment. I'm surprised at how many people can't take a compliment. You know, they don't know what to do with it, or they want to give you one back as a payment back, and it's like, no, I just really liked, you know, liked your hair that day. Or
those, yeah, I mean, we've got to teach people how to do that though, to make a sort of kinder leads, I suppose. So it's like trying within our organizations and networks to do that, and places to do that would be in safe conversation spaces. I think in terms of mental health, there's a lot of pressure, as we all know, especially coming out of a pandemic. There's more pressure on services. So if we can build more safe conversation spaces as an alternative that won't work for everyone but will work for a lot of people, then there's more opportunity to teach those sorts of things.
Thank you. Helen, you wanted to go.
I was just going to say, where I work, Leeds Church Institute, we've adopted a motto for the staff team, and the idea is it works out, and we ask it at every staff meeting. And the motto is be kind, be curious, because we think that those are two things that work well, whether you're talking about how practically to run an event or how you're making some kind of networking relationship. So we're finding the idea of something that we keep returning to and keep asking ourselves. So how is it relevant to be kind, be curious? And we're finding that good.
I like that. Be kind, be curious. Shahid, please.
Yeah, I think everybody else has picked all the good ones, so I'll have to think of something else. I was really struck by the colleague that was it Hazel, who was saying, you know, it's those little acts that can all build up, and You know, I look at some of the funding that the council puts out, and I get more pleasure out of seeing the impact of small pots of funding of a couple of £100 than I do of the thousands of pounds, because I do think that when they're aggregated up, those things tend to make the difference. I think what I might do is to just build on that and say that I'm really big on compassionate action. And I think a city like Leeds, particularly having come through COVID, and when we've been called on as a city, we've not been found wanting. Actually, there is fantastic work that's gone on in this city, you know, that I think is comparable with any of the good work elsewhere in the country. And I think for me, a sense of hope now is going to be really important, because there is a likelihood that we may go into a second spike, have either small geographical or larger geographical or maybe even national lockdowns. And I think we just need to be confident and provide some hope that we can get out the other end of it. And I think for me, compassionate action means to do more for others in a way that enables them to do more for themselves and have hope that we'll be in a better place. And that's come home to me on a personal level much more since COVID. So that's what I'd throw into the pot.
Thank you, Shade. Anne, I'll give it to you and then we're going to wrap up.
I'll be quick. Just say absolutely agree with what people have been saying. From a personal and possibly slightly political point of view, for me, I think we really need to start looking at like more radical solutions for society as a whole to be able to allow us to do a lot of the things that we've talked about, for example, universal basic income, because so many of us, the reason that we don't have the time and the energy to be more kind and compassionate towards one another is because we're literally struggling to pay the bills, to put food in our mouths, and this is particularly the case. You know, I worry about this. I am pretty well off, you know. I work with so many people who, you know, through no fault of their own, are in a position where that's pretty much all that they can think about, and they still find time to be kind. Imagine what all of those people can do if they didn't have to worry about those things. Imagine what we could do if we didn't have to worry about those things. So for me, that's sort of my hope for the future, is that we can work on a way to let ourselves all have more time and energy to be more kind.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a really beautiful place to finish. I want to thank all of you for participating, and particularly our panelists have been wonderful. It's been lovely to meet you and to hear what you're doing and the work you're doing.